A woman once told me it took her 8 months to realize what was happening. He wasn't a bad man. He was polite, attentive, always said the right things at the right moments, but slowly, quietly, her life began to orbit around his comfort. Nobody announced it, nobody decided it, it simply happened. She couldn't point to a single moment when it changed. There was no argument, no grand gesture, no obvious turning point. Just a slow accumulation of small things, until one day she looked up and realized the relationship had a shape she never agreed to. And he felt happy. He called it love. After a while, she wasn't sure anymore whether she was being loved or simply needed, and that distinction is one many of us take far too long to name. Because these men are rarely cruel, they aren't consciously searching for someone to serve them. They're searching for a feeling, the warmth, the presence, the quiet comfort that once surrounded their lives, and they call that feeling love. Because for them, perhaps, it genuinely is, but the question was never whether he loves you. The real question is, in this relationship, are you being loved in return? I've watched women miss these signs for months, women who had already survived difficult marriages, raised children alone, rebuilt their lives from nothing. Women who thought they were finally old enough to know the difference. But these signs have a way of hiding inside the very things we've been hoping for. Sign number 1, the medical briefing. Sometimes you can tell a relationship is going to become exhausting before the appetizers even arrive. A friend of mine named Odos learned that the hard way a few years ago. She met a widower named Clifford at a community fundraiser, and at first he seemed gentle in the way many older men do after loss. Soft-spoken, polite, a little fragile around the edges. The kind of man who gives the impression that life has humbled him on their first date. He mentioned his knee surgery 3 different times before the salad arrived. Odell's noticed it, but she brushed it aside. People over 60 talk about health sometimes. Comes with the territory. Bodies become part of the conversation whether we like it or not. But the second dinner felt different. Clifford talked about his blood pressure medication, then about an upcoming colonoscopy, then about a sleep study his doctor had scheduled. He described side effects in detail. He explained which pills made him dizzy and which specialist frustrated him. Nearly 2 hours passed that way. Driving home afterward, Odell's realized something unsettling. He had not asked her a single meaningful question all evening. Not about her children, not about her years teaching music, not about the books she loved or the grief she carried or the kind of life she hoped to build in her later years. The entire conversation had revolved around the maintenance of his body and the management of his anxiety. Now, I want to be fair here. Vulnerability is not a bad thing. In fact, emotional openness is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can bring into dating. After 60, many older men were never taught how to express fear or loneliness when they were young. So when they finally begin sharing those things, it can look messy at first. But real vulnerability has reciprocity. A person who genuinely wants companionship eventually becomes curious about your inner world too. They want to know what shaped you, what still hurts you, what still makes you laugh unexpectedly in the grocery store. Emotional intimacy moves in both directions, like breathing. What troubled Odell's was not that Clifford had health concerns. It was as if he seemed to be unconsciously handing her the emotional weight of those concerns before they had even built a connection. And many women know this feeling intimately. As you sit across from someone on a second or third date and slowly realize you are no longer having a conversation. You are absorbing stress. You are becoming a container for someone else's fears. One-directional conversations often become one-directional relationships. That is the danger, because when someone only introduces you to their problems without showing curiosity about your humanity, what they may truly be saying is this: here is everything you will eventually be responsible for if you enter my life. And that realization tends to arrive quietly, like a cold draft under a locked door. Sign number 2, the Kobobili compliment. You seem like a very capable woman. Some compliments make you feel seen, and then some compliments make you feel assessed. A few years ago, I attended a dinner party hosted by an old neighbor. Nothing formal. Just 6 people, soft jazz playing in the background, candles burning too close to the fruit bowl. Everyone pretending they still enjoyed red wine more than heartburn medication. That evening, I was seated beside a man named Theodore. He had the polished manners of someone who knew exactly how to appear charming in public. Warm smile, steady eye contact, the kind of voice that sounded trustworthy before you even examined the words coming out of it. Within 20 minutes, Theodore told me 3 things. First, he said, "You strike me as a very capable woman." Then he mentioned that his house had slowly fallen apart since his wife passed away 2 years earlier. He laughed while saying it, but there was fatigue underneath the joke. He talked about unopened mail piling on the counter, missed appointments, broken cabinet hinges, laundry he could never seem to finish. A little later, while dessert was being served, he casually asked whether I enjoyed keeping a home organized. I remember sitting there with my fork halfway to my mouth when something inside me quietly clicked into place, because sometimes the word capable does not mean admirable. Sometimes it means useful. That realization hit me harder because I had heard that exact compliment decades earlier from my former husband, Gerald. Back when we were dating, he used to tell his friends how competent I was. At the time, I thought he respected my intelligence and independence. Years later, after handling nearly every emotional and logistical responsibility in our marriage, I finally understood something painful. Gerald admired me the same way. An employer admires an impressive resume. Reliable, efficient, adaptable, able to carry weight without complaint, and many older men, often without malicious intent, still speak this language fluently. They compliment women based on how effectively those women might stabilize, organized, grounded, good with people, good under pressure, wonderful traits of course, but pay attention to what follows those compliments. Is he trying to know you more deeply, or is he quietly measuring how well you might fit into the empty operational spaces of his life? A man who truly desires connection usually becomes fascinated by things that cannot be turned into labor. Your humor, your strange opinions about movies, the stories behind your scars, the way your face changes when you talk about your childhood. He wants access to your mind, not just your competence, and that distinction matters more than many women realize. Because when admiration centers mostly around what you can manage, organize, soothe, or repair, love can slowly begin to feel less like intimacy and more like employment with romantic lighting. Some compliments are windows into affection. Others are job interviews, wearing a necktie and a pleasant smile, and unfortunately the difference often reveals itself much later than it should. Sign number 3. The Itemized Check. I once knew a man named Reginald who talked endlessly about fairness, not kindness, not generosity. Fairness. The word appeared in nearly every conversation we had during those early dates. He believed in equality. On the surface, it sounded reasonable, mature. Even after all, many women over 60 are not looking for someone to financially rescue them. Most have spent decades taking care of themselves already. But sometimes a person reveals their true relationship philosophy in tiny moments that seem insignificant at first. One evening, Reginald and I went to a small Italian restaurant. We shared stories, laughed a little, watched rain slide slowly down the windows while Frank Sinatra played softly overhead. For a moment, it actually felt peaceful. Then the check arrived. Reginald pulled out his glasses immediately and began reviewing the receipt line by line like an auditor preparing a tax report. He separated the appetizer I had ordered for the table, calculated the extra tea refill, even pointed out that he had only eaten one piece of the bruschetta. I remember sitting there, thinking this is not about $12. And deep down I knew it never was. Because later that same evening, Reginald spoke warmly about how meaningful it would be to build a life together someday. He described shared dinners, emotional support, companionship through aging, and someone to help keep life steady and comfortable. That was the moment the imbalance became impossible to ignore. Some people guard small financial contributions with extraordinary precision, while quietly expecting enormous emotional and domestic labor in return. Cooking, cleaning, listening, scheduling appointments. Services that somehow become invisible the moment women provide them. The check is rarely just about money. It reveals whether someone is trying to enjoy your company or calculate your cost. A person pursuing a genuine connection usually pays attention to how the evening feels. Are you comfortable? Are you laughing? Are you relaxed? But a person operating from scarcity keeps one eye on the emotional ledger at all times, and relationships built on ledgers become exhausting very quickly. I think many older women understand this instinctively now because life has already taught them the hidden price of unpaid labor. I'm curious whether you've ever experienced something similar in dating after 60. Have you ever had a moment where a small situation suddenly revealed something much bigger about a person? Share your thoughts in the comments. I think many people listening tonight would quietly understand exactly what you mean. Some warnings do not arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive folded neatly beside the dinner bill. Sign #4. The house tour. A messy house does not automatically make someone a bad partner, but the attitude surrounding that mess can tell you everything. I remember a woman describing a first date with a man named Walter, who invited her back to his home after dinner. She expected a nightcap and conversation. Instead, she found herself walking through rooms filled with unopened boxes, dusty shelves, dishes in the sink, laundry draped over chairs like abandoned fabric. Walter gave the tour with an oddly hopeful tone, not embarrassed, not apologetic. At one point he laughed softly and said, "This place really got away from me after my wife passed." A few minutes later came another sentence many women over 60 have heard before. "I'm not much of a housekeeper." What struck her later was not the condition of the home. Grief can disorganize people. Lacing can overwhelm people. Life happens. It was the expectation hidden underneath the atmosphere. The quiet assumption that a woman entering his life would naturally step into the role of restoring order. That story reminded me painfully of my former husband, Gerald. Years ago, I returned home from a work trip to find the house exactly as I had left it days earlier. Dishes untouched, gas overflowing, laundry waiting. Gerald looked genuinely relaxed when I walked through the door. "I figured you'd handle it when you got back," he said casually, and that sentence stayed with me for years because it revealed something deeper than laziness. He did not see the household as a shared responsibility. He saw it as terrain that naturally belonged to me. A grown man manages his own life. You are supposed to be his companion, not the maintenance department quietly assigned to keep everything functioning behind the scenes. Sign #5, the full picture. The hardest part about these signs is that each one, by itself, can seem harmless. A man talks too much about his health. Someone compliments how organized you are. A dinner bill gets split too carefully. A house looks neglected after years of living alone. Individually, these moments can be explained away, but eventually a pattern begins forming, and patterns tell the truth far more clearly than isolated incidents ever do. When you place all the pieces together, what emerges often looks less like romance and more like a quiet job listing. Someone to stabilize the household, someone to manage emotional turbulence, someone to remember appointments, organize routine, soften loneliness, carry invisible responsibilities, and keep daily life moving without recognition. The uncomfortable truth is that many of these men are not intentionally manipulative. They simply spent decades inside marriages where their wives became the full-time emotional and operational adults for both people. The system worked so baje that they barely noticed it while it was happening. Then divorce, illness, or death removed that structure overnight. Suddenly, they are not only grieving a partner, they are grieving the disappearance of the entire life management system built around them. That is why so many women over 60 must learn to ask a difficult question early. Does this man truly want to know me? Or does he simply want relief? Because those are not the same thing. A healthy relationship in later life should feel like two complete people sharing the weight of existence. Not one exhausted person quietly carrying another adult across the finish line. You are not a replacement installation for somebody else's unfinished life. And real love, especially after 60, should never require you to disappear to make someone else comfortable." End quote. Sometimes wisdom arrives when a woman finally realizes this. Companionship should feel lighter after love enters the room, not heavier. Before we close tonight, I want to say something important. This conversation is not meant to make women bitter. It is not about becoming cynical or anti-men. There are still kind, emotionally mature men in this world, even after 60. Men who know how to care, listen, adapt, and love with generosity. The purpose of this video is simply clarity, because there is a profound difference between someone searching for a life partner and someone quietly searching for unpaid caregiving wrapped in romance. Over the years, I have come to admire one quality more than charm, wealth, or even chemistry: unavailability in the dating sense, emotional availability, a person who is genuinely present, a man who cares whether you are tired, whether your heart feels safe, whether your life, your memories, your thoughts, and your humanity matter too. He does not need to be perfect. He does not need movie star romance or endless confidence. But he should already know how to stand on his own feet before asking to walk beside yours, because after 60, the greatest gift is not finding someone who needs you to survive. It is finding someone who has learned how to live independently and still chooses to share the remaining years of life with you. And if this conversation spoke to something deep in your heart tonight, gently like this video and subscribe to Wise Life After 60. There are many more honest conversations waiting for us here.